Another city looks to make landlords responsible for the debts of the tenants when they don't pay their utilities. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting topic for you today, and it's a topic I've covered in, I think, one other video, but it has to do with the utilities that tenants pay. Okay, so in a lot of cities nowadays, when a tenant doesn't pay their water bill or their gas bill, you know what they do? They don't go looking for this tenant, or they don't, put the debt on the back of this tenant. They come after the landlord, because in the minds of these cities and these, utility companies, the landlord has money, so therefore we're going to go after them. That's the only way they think that they're going to get paid. The problem with that is that you're putting a debt on a person who didn't, basically a person, this isn't their debt, okay? Telling me that I have to pay my neighbor's credit card bill because you think I have money. That's insane, okay? And the people who accumulated the debt, they don't face any, consequences for their bad actions. And that's wrong. I've always said that, right? Now, I realize these laws have already passed in a lot of the country. And one of the places where I invested, I think there was one city I invested where this was the case. But in most of the places I invest, this is not the case. And I feel bad for the landlords who have to deal with this sort of situation, because I've heard nightmare stories, okay? Stories where a landlord ends up with a $3,000 electric bill or a water bill because the tenant left the water running for 10 days straight and then skipped town. And, the utility company or the city or whoever is, charging the landlord for these bills, their thing is, well, why don't you just sue the tenant to get the money back? Well, why don't you sue the tenant? This is your debt. This is a contract between you and the tenant. And, simply put, if you're not getting paid, then you need to go after the person who owes you and not me. This is completely wrong. And this debt shouldn't be tied to my property. I mean, it shouldn't be tied to me because I own the property. Just because you think I have money, why are, it's wrong. It's just plain wrong, okay? And I've always believed this. So, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think, okay? In your opinion, who should be responsible when the tenant doesn't pay? Should the tenant be responsible for their own debt? Or should the landlord be responsible for the debt because, they own the property and therefore anything that happens in the property is their responsibility? I mean, think about that for a moment. Now, in my properties, right, when I have a tenant move in, they have to get the utilities turned over to their name, okay? But imagine if the city told me, even if the tenant has the bill in their name, I still am responsible for it. Well, it would take away any incentive for me to even tell the tenant to put the utilities in their name. So in a lot of these cities, what landlords are doing is they're saying, listen, we will pay the utilities, right? And if the utility bill is over X amount, then we're going to be charging you for it, okay? And what this ends up doing is it makes the rent higher overall, because that's the only way the landlords can make up for the losses that they could potentially suffer, because these tenants, they could get screwed over. So yeah, I mean, I don't agree with cities and governments who think this is, the great way to, balance their books. Okay, you had a contract signed with you with this tenant, and this tenant owes you a debt. So going after a third party that's unrelated to the issue to get your money is it's wrong, and it should be illegal in my opinion. Anyway, this article, it's coming from kmvt.com, and it says, City of Twin Falls exploring options to reduce rental property utility account losses. Yeah, that's what they call it. They call it rental property utility account losses. Okay? When we all know what this really is. Tenants are skipping out on paying their utility bills. This utility company isn't getting paid. And how are they going to mitigate that? Well, we're going to find somebody who can pay us. We'll put a lien on the property for somebody who doesn't even owe us this is so ridiculous. Anyway, let's get into this article and see what it says. The Twin Falls Utility Billing Department is looking to implement a process aimed at reducing the city's losses on rental property utility accounts. Officials said the city currently turns over approximately $140,000 each year in utility bills for collection. Only about 24% of that money is actually recovered by the city. As a result, the department proposed the creation of a point system that would help identify troublesome properties in terms of non-payment. Yeah, you notice that their point system will identify troublesome properties, not troublesome people who aren't good at paying their bills. This is why, in my opinion, we need to have access to records to see, hey, who's paying their bills and who isn't, who owes debt, who doesn't. So, this kind of goes into the topic of, I'm a strong believer in good tenant screening, right? And if a person has a credit history that says, hey, this person doesn't pay their utility bills, then I don't necessarily want to rent to that person, because I know if they can't pay their utility bills, how are they going to be paying me on time? Okay. But it goes back to the fact that, simply put, this person obtained the debt, they did not pay their debt, and now you're going over to me, the landlord, to pay their debt for them. And that's wrong. Yeah. And they're right. Okay, the landlord doesn't want a property where they can't get utilities turned on, so they most likely will pay this bill. But to me, that's just, it's like stealing. Okay, it is literally stealing money from these landlords, because you are basically using extortion, the threat of not being able to get utilities turned on in their properties, using extortion in order to drag money out of their pockets. Okay. And, when I hear about utility companies or government agencies doing this kind of nonsense, it just pisses me off. But let's keep going. It would be a one-way street, said Assistant Finance Director Brett Hyatt. Once a property is defined as troublesome, then we would have the owner be responsible. During Monday's meeting, City Council decided to further explore this option. While rental properties only account for about 16% of the city's utility accounts, they make up about 93% of the money sent for collection. Yeah, so you notice they say the property accounts for, the collections. No, those are people. The people who signed up for the utilities are the ones who have these accounts in collection. Okay. And a property can't become troublesome. Okay. What if you put me into a rental property? I'm always going to pay my bill on time. But if you put, this person with poor credit history and no job and who doesn't care about paying their debts off into a property, it doesn't matter if it's a rental property or the house they own. They're just going to have accounts going into collection. Okay, so it is the individual. And until you fix that individual as a problem, then simply put, this will continue to exist. So you're punishing landlords, you're extorting money out of the landlord's pockets, and it's just dead wrong. And I am 100% against these laws. But tell me what you think in the comments down below. I know a lot of landlords already deal with this situation. It's pretty common, right? But, tell me experiences you have had with these local governments and, having to pay these bills for your tenants if you had to deal with this.